Welcome to today's episode of Print to Pixel, the podcast where we talk to marketing leaders and technologists about how omnichannel marketing is revolutionizing the way that direct mail and digital marketing are used together. My name is Dennis Kelly. I'm the CEO of Postalytics, the leading direct mail automation provider that makes direct mail as easy as email. I'm excited today to speak with Brian Greenwald and Tracy Kronzak of Benevolent Tech. Brian is a co-founder and co-CEO, and Tracy is also a co-founder and chief strategy officer of Benevolent Tech. They work with nonprofit organizations to help develop alignment around the organization's vision, the development of data structures that support that vision, and then the onboarding of the right technology to enable nonprofits to focus on their mission and less on managing technology and processes. Tracy and Brian, welcome to Print to Pixel.
Great to be here, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Well, we're super psyched to have you, and we have a lot to chat about today. One thing I'll mention, it is early March of 2025. The pollen has descended upon me, and I'm very hoarse, and so I apologize to everybody's ears for the way that my voice sounds. And with that timing in early March of 2025, there's some other, I think, relevant things that we'll get into as well. Some state of the industry stuff here in the nonprofit world. But before we do that, let's talk about Benevolent Tech. And our listeners are always interested in understanding the roots of the organizations that they work with and that we interview. And so I would love to hear a little bit of the origin story of Benevolent Tech and specifically dive into, what is it that you saw as a gap in the marketplace for the services that you're providing that really triggered and pushed you both to come together and to create this company. I always find that fascinating, and I think it provides a little glimpse into the nature of any organization. So tell us, how did this thing get started, and what was it that you saw in the market that led to this happening?
So,
Brian, you should go first. Yeah,
I'll go with the high level, and then Tracy can sort of take it a level deeper. So, there is an incredibly rich and robust community, both within and around the nonprofit and nonprofit tech industry. And you really can't be in this industry for very long and not run into the incredible luminaries. So going back for myself, working at a tech services firm that probably got into it for the right reasons, but with the wrong knowledge. And being exposed to a lot of the technology platforms, and we're talking about, 2000 through the pandemic, and seeing firsthand as a business development leader the struggles that these organizations had with process, with data, with sort of being sold to in a fractured way, and realizing that at a very real level their needs are not really being served to the degree that they should. And just sort of through that, being partnered with all these different product companies and other service firms and selection consultants and fundraising consultants, there's an incredible community. And, several years ago, when exploring new options, HubSpot really popped up as a potential new idea in the HubSpot in the nonprofit tech industry. And from there, it really was sort of an evolution of the group that came together as Benevolent Tech, each of us having our passions, our ideas, and our skill sets, and just coming together through different communities that we're a part of and realizing that there is this moment that is emerging where a great disruption is coming, and where new opportunities and new solutions, and most importantly, breaking down the competitive silos between all of the organizations that are serving the nonprofit industry. This was a moment that was coming. And, lucky enough to meet my partners like Tracy and Amy Rose and Nicole Reyes and Bob Breck and Elsa Roberts. And we just sort of came together in a rather organic way. And so we're sort of a group of veterans in the industry that saw an opportunity to do something a little different. And over some sushi and sake in Portland at NTC last year, we said, let's take our companies and put them together into something that's greater than some of its parts.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would really add to that, Brian, is I met you in the fall of 2023. And, I personally, and I've said this in multiple locations, my ethos on technology, particularly as applied to nonprofits, is that choice is good, competition is good, consolidation is bad, centralization is out of date. And ultimately, like the more we can take what is available out there and tailor it to the needs of the industries, the better served organizations will be, period. Full stop. No, except our solution is better. No, except put things here and it's just the nature of the beast. And I said this on another recording this morning, even where I said, and in 5 years, we'll be talking about something different. And in 10 years, we'll be talking something even more different than that. So in the era that I met you, Brian, I was actually reacting to two things. I was reacting to the literal decimation of what was formerly known as Salesforce.org. That's dead. And the fact that through that decimation, the Nonprofit Success Pack, which is a tool that I personally, amongst many others, helped develop and build, it was starting to die on the vine. And, I think what I wanted to do was leverage what I knew could be done inside of HubSpot and create a new landing zone for organizations who want to do two things really well together: fundraise and engage. And I've really started referring to HubSpot as the action center for your integrations, for your data, for your world that you need to engage and cultivate and draw into you. And that leaves the sort of ecosystem of partners to put the right solutions in the right places and just put the right data into action. And when you look at it that way, it's no longer coming to an organization and saying, if you centralize everything, including all of the architecture and all of the code and all of the processes in our solution, you'll be fine. That worked in 2010 when we had no other alternatives. What we're actually saying to organizations is, let's figure out who you are, how you work best, how you can use this technology best, what are the right solutions, and what do you need to act on? And that's where we will focus inside of HubSpot. And this is all happening in conjunction with the sort of fundraising and marketing kind of functions coming closer and closer and closer every year in the nonprofit ecosystem in the United States. So it's exciting. And I love futzing around with new technology. And this is absolutely, Brian will tell you, I'm going to hint to it only now. We have some product-based announcements that I've been futzing on for about 8 months. So we're going to announce some of that at NTC on HubSpot Day on the 15th of April in Baltimore. So there you go. That's all I'll add.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is that, I believe that in addition to like how things have changed, you can't really nowadays just build a product company or build a service or offer a service. You have to build a community. You have to build an ecosystem. And so part of what we're doing is creating a coalition of the willing, like Postalytics and other partners who are willing to come together and say a couple of things. Let's change the way that we're selling and servicing the nonprofit industry. One, let's remove technical debt. Let's remove engineering lift, and let's make the ease of use for non-technical professionals. Let's raise that. Let's make that ease of use. And then, third, let's recognize that, we need to come together and work with our nonprofit partners to really deeply listen to what their day-to-day challenges are, because it's not just the board. It's not just the executive director. It's the marketing manager that's down there trying to get the mission done. And they're struggling with their technology. So it has to be a conversation. It has to be a community. It has to be open. And we need to focus on creating multifaceted, holistic solutions that are focused on outcomes as opposed to just tools and services.
It's technology should be supporting human-led processes, and as opposed to technology is not an end game unto itself, but it is a tool that when properly deployed can assist people of various different types of skill sets and experience levels to be more productive and better at what they do. And so, we're thrilled at Postalytics to be a part of this team, this ecosystem that you're pulling together at Benevolent Tech. And we'll get in more of this as we go along. One thing that we did touch on in that discussion is something I think it's important for us to dig in a little bit further on here is, as we mentioned earlier, this is early March of 2025, and it would be almost irresponsible of us to not touch on the fact that we are, as a world, going through a significant amount of upheaval and uncertainty. And of course, the nonprofit sector is not immune to any of that. In fact, some in the nonprofit sector are right in the crosshairs of this upheaval. And so really curious with your conversations with your customers and the people in the industry that you speak with, what are nonprofit leaders saying at this point in time? And how are they thinking about what is happening? And then how does that translate into the way that you are trying to build these human-centered processes to assist these organizations?
I can start on that, Brian, but I think you're the closing case on this one.
Maybe.
But the reason why I say that is because, look, thank you for acknowledging that, Dennis. Sometimes these types of recordings and discussions can come off tone deaf to the state of the world. And, what I am personally hearing, people are personally reaching out from many organizations. There is a lot of fear. There is a lot of fear. And that fear is centered on what happens to my data? How do I keep working? What does it mean if the federal government does X, Y, and Z or A, B, and C to my organization or the communities that we serve? And people are really searching for answers. And I think there are a few streams of discussions starting to emerge. There's people coming together saying we need to circle back together as an industry and come up with solutions that serve our industry as an industry. There's a vector of discussions around the role of philanthropy in this time. There's a vector of discussions around what happens, and I take some responsibility for instigating this one. What happens if my 501c3 status is revoked for whatever reason? Can another organization step in immediately and make me fiscally sponsored? Can another organization step in with expertise and help continuity of operations and service for my nonprofit, right? So there are these early threads of reinstigation and re-collaboration, but as applied explicitly to technology, what it has also reopened up is what is the response of the businesses hosting our data in the first place? And I have not seen a coherent response yet, but nor has anybody. So we are waiting for more information, but people are very anxious. And, I just literally had a conversation yesterday with the CEO of an organization who is on Ted Cruz's subpoena list. They're like organization, whatever number. And they were like, what do we do? And I think we're in uncharted waters in a lot of ways. So to Brian's point and to yours, the first thing we do is we come together as an industry again. And I even had the privilege of a piece that just got published today on Candid for me talking about, well, can we make a nonprofit NATO now? Can we make an organization that is strategic and cooperative and mutually defensible? And what I propose, even in that piece, is can we actually create a 501c4 and a PAC in defense of the industry and the values that it represents? Because right now, people really are craving answers. So, there are threads of conversations emerging, and I think it's far too early for anybody to raise their hand and say, I have a perfect answer. But there's a lot of people who are putting their thoughts and their leadership out there around, well, here's a facet of this conversation that I want to offer as part of your consideration. And that takes bravery right now, too. And there's a lot of people stepping up for that. So that's my half of it. But Brian, you'll be able to relate it to actually us as a business better than I
Well,
can.
I mean, there's a reason. So there's a reason that we, when we came together and, we were sort of ideating of what should we call ourselves? We made a really conscious decision to use this word benevolent. And the operative word being benevolent, the definition we use is from the Cambridge English Dictionary, which is kind and helpful, right? So in the face of pressure, in the face of all of this uncertainty, we don't have the answers, but the one thing that we know is that we're stronger together. So how can we create kind and helpful spaces that have trust and psychological safety first, right? And then how can we sort of build on that, recognizing that, when you're in an era of darkness, it's the light that's going to penetrate that. So how can we create communities that are about well-being, that are about fulfillment, and that are about agency, where we're focused together on fulfilling human needs. That is not an imperative of just the nonprofit industry. And the nonprofit industry is filling the gaps that the rest of humanity is not. So I feel that we have a responsibility to be what we call benevolent businesses, where we exist to fulfill human needs. And I still believe that that's actually a smart business strategy. And that, the idea of building these safe spaces, of building communities that are stronger together, and you really can't have too many of them, and then building those communities on those communities. I think that we can penetrate the darkness that has descended and recognize that, at the end of the day, the well-being of your common man does determine your fate, and that you cannot walk away from that. And expect that we're going to have a just and fruitful world in the future. It's just not what history tells us. And so, I think that at the end of that day, no one, as Tracy says, can claim that they have that answer. But it's actually the wrestling with that brings the value. And I think that we should hold off and saying we've got the answer, but we should just wrestle with the problem together, recognizing that all of this talent, all of this passion, all of this character that this industry in its broadest definition brings, that together we can resist taking the world down the wrong path, at least in what we have control over. So, I think that's the other half of the equation.
I love the idea of benevolent businesses. I think that that is a catchphrase that I will use, and I will footnote you, Brian, in the use of that catchphrase. But I think that it is a great way to characterize the way that for-profit organizations like ours can be helpful to the nonprofit community in this time when there's so much uncertainty and fear and it's my opinion that America loves the nonprofit sector. I think that everybody recognizes the role that it plays, and it's such an important role. And it's really an entrepreneurial system of organizations that have popped up to fill so many different needs, and they do such important work. And I think it's it's truly an American institution. When I talk to my friends overseas, there's nothing like the nonprofit industry in any of these other countries. Like it is completely an American invention. The scope and the scale of what the nonprofit leaders of our nation have created, and so to support that as benevolent businesses, I think is a great tagline, and I'm going to run with that. So thank you, Brian.
Well, I'm gonna crib Brian because he didn't say this, but the mantra that we say is profit enabled, not profit driven. And you know, to our discussion of the context of the times, what I say the role of nonprofits really is, particularly here in the United States, is to navigate, manage, and essentially patch the externalities of both capitalism and democracy. So, this isn't a full-scale argument for dismantling everything, but what it is saying is if capitalism just acts a little less capitalistic, and our country acts a little more benevolent, managing those externalities for many, many communities. And boy, I've seen my share of them from isolated towns and states, all over the central part of the United States to homeless kids in San Francisco and New York. The commonality there is these challenges exist because they are externalities. And if we think of ourselves as business people as not trying to maximize everything for the sake of our own business survival first, but understanding that in our role, we create externalities, and how do we navigate those? We become that much more benevolent, and we enable organizations to have that easier of a time helping the communities and the constituents they care about most.
With
this idea. I'm sorry. This idea of benevolent business is not sort of, it's not just a branding idea. I mean, one of my mentors is Dr.
Philosophy.
Dr. Maurizio Zolo, who founder and runs the Leonardo Center at Imperial College in London. I've known him for 35 years since he was doing his PhD at Wharton. And his entire career has been building a database of 1 million case studies that show that when companies focus on the well-being of their communities, shareholders do better. He has been a guide and a mentor on the idea of well, how do you build a business from the ground up around the idea that it is there for fulfilling human needs and creating well-being, fulfillment, and agency. I think that it can become a competitive advantage, and our deeper mission is to prove that, so that other businesses will follow us and build a community of folks who are already doing that. And there are so many.
Yeah, and there are so many.
To bring them, elevate them, and create a platform for their stories to be known, so that other businesses say, you know what, we can be benevolent and be more profitable as a result. And I truly believe that is the shift that will happen in the 21st century inevitably, because it's a generational shift. My son just said to me the other day, he works at a government contractor, and he said to me, you know what, I want to change my career. I want the work that I do to generate good in the world. Just, he's 28 years old. It's a generational shift. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to make that into a powerful force together.
I agree. And I applaud both of you and your entire team in being leaders in progressing toward that future vision. So, and I think all the things that you're saying make a ton of sense. And this notion of being helpful and kind as a business, like, how can you go wrong? Right? How can you go wrong being helpful?
Hey, if you were raised with the golden rule like I was, if you were raised with the golden rule like I was, it's, hold that door for somebody,
right.
or as, we were just at our kids' spelling bee, and our oldest, he got second place in the whole city. We were super proud. And
Wow.
the first thing he did like was turn around to the kid who won, shook his hand, said, "Congratulations, you're amazing. And I'm so happy for you." And like we all teared up. We were like, "Oh, that's amazing." But that was the business community that I came up in. Like, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was scrapping around at these small businesses in that era, I was doing consulting on Salesforce. And the owners knew each other. We all, to some degree were competing for some of these same giant accounts. But like, a competitor of ours landed a massive organization that greatly accelerated and changed the nature of his business in an early era when he really needed it. And you better believe we were vying for that, as amongst others were. And the first thing my boss did was call him up and say, "Hey, man, we're super sad we didn't get it, but I'm super happy for you that you did. And I want you to know that because you're going to do good work just like we know you do." And I'm like, what happened to that world? And I think we need to recenter on that world in all of our services, particularly in what I call the impact economy, which is the functional elements of businesses, nonprofits, philanthropy, and technology working together. We can come back to that. It's only been in the past 5 to 10 years that everything has suddenly shifted over to zero sum gain, kind of mentality,
Well,
and what's the point of a victory if it's a Pyrrhic victory, And I miss those eras, and I hope that we can get back to them.
Well, I think that with the work that you're doing and the community that you're pulling together, that we certainly have a start. And so I applaud you for that. Shifting gears a little bit, let's drill into some more specifics around the work that you do. So before we talk about some examples, tell us about, in this massive community out there of the nonprofit sector, where there are so many different types of organizations in terms of size and mission and their ability to adopt different processes to be more efficient. What are the types of organizations that are really the sweet spot for what you're trying to do today at Benevolent Tech? And that may change over time, right? And it certainly has for us as Postalytics, that the quote unquote ideal customer profile has evolved significantly over the years. But for today, who are you trying to serve really, really well? And tell us about that type of organization.
Tracy, why don't you start with this one? Because I'll have the sort of philosophical answer, but you'll have the
ground. I was hoping you would start with this one. Look, I will start at 100 million feet and work my way down as far as I can go. But we have essentially two giant buckets of organizations that we serve. We serve nonprofits who specifically want to focus on fundraising. We serve public media as part of that pile of organizations. And within the nonprofit world, there are many, many, many verticals and many, many sized organizations. And so far, we're kind of hitting all across that spectrum. Because some of the core fundraising processes, some of the core engagement processes don't really change. What changes is how those data inputs get shaped around them and the nature of the analysis to create those outputs, right? And then we also serve, what we call for-profit, for-good companies. And that is companies who really, have mission statements. I mean, our ideal target for that would be Patagonia. Hi, if you're listening, we'll help you with HubSpot. But we are working with B Corps a lot. We're working with businesses who, even if they're not B Corps, aren't the ones who are just massively extractive. to our world or our society. So that's 100 million view foot. And then when we narrow that down a little bit, what I would also say is our ICP is an organization that is hungry for its own change. And it is because of the nature of the work that we do that, even if there's no clear forward path, like we don't know how, but having that curiosity, having that hunger, having that desire, and knowing that the right conversations can unlock not just mission delivery or productivity, but the right kind of utilization of the technology that you're doing things with. And then I would say at the very lowest level, to some of our prior discussions, I say for nonprofits, the right technology, and I do put that in quotes because the right technology is actually a composition of strategies. Do you have a platform or a tool that can work or be shaped to work? Do you have that hunger, that desire to make better for your mission and for your organization? And do you have the community around you who are speaking from the same playbook that you don't necessarily have to come back to us for answers? You can ask your peers, right? That was one super magical thing that I had the opportunity to participate in 15 years ago, was when the Salesforce Foundation still exists. It fostered community and it provided us templates for how to get shared business processes accomplished for nonprofits inside of Salesforce. And it said, look, here's a template that works with how we work, but you are the actual experts. You are the domain experts, and you are the people who can accelerate this and actually apply it toward your work. All we can do is provide structure. So when you look at it through that lens, I also say it's the right technology, the right strategy, and the right community coming together.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is, we prefacing that with a big part of the way we try to approach, particularly the initial engagement with our clients, is to take a human-centered design approach. And why we do that is because technology change is by definition organizational change. And organizational change is actually driven by people. It's not driven by technology. And so that self-awareness for change at the leadership level, at the department level, at the individual contributor level is super important. It doesn't happen automatically. It's experiential. And so human-centered design is a process by which folks come together, the playing field is leveled. People are put into a beginner's mindset. Their assumptions get challenged. And everyone has a voice. And what we've experienced is that people will embrace what they help create. And so the leadership at these organizations have to recognize that it's a very good investment to sort of bring people together around a co-creation process, because that's going to make the change both relevant to the everyday work life of every individual, and it's also going to make it persistent. So that's the first thing. And that the other part of that is that requires it being participatory. And I like to use radically participatory. And so we always prefer to start with our clients with that human-centered design process, because what we're finding is that it makes the solutions more resilient, it makes the process more resilient, and it makes the adoption more resilient. We have our executive sponsor at a university in California, and we were doing a full week of both human-centered design and technical discovery workshops. And my co-CEO Amy and I were having lunch with this gentleman, and we told him, he said, look, we sold you technology services, but we actually came for organizational transformation. And his response was, well, I saw that, and that's why we hired you. So, those organizations that are really willing to be bold, willing to really be introspective, and willing to open the process, the creative process, up to everyone who is impacted by it, are the ones that that get the most out of that technology transformation.
Love
And,
it. So
I want
is
to shine some light on Postalytics here too, Dennis, because here's the thing. Nonprofits are, by my experience, and I've done nonprofit tech for 25 years. I started with server racks and VPNs. Like that was the late 90s, early 2000s. There you go. So nonprofits themselves are the most innovative organizations I have ever come across because in order for one of those to persist, you need to be thinking about how to fill gaps in our world. You need to be always scrapping for solutions, and you need to be capable of adapting to change. And I'll shine a light even on Postalytics and say, look, when I first got the demo of what y'all do, I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand why. And it might have been timing because it was the holiday season and I was getting inundated with mail. But when I really sat and thought about it, I was like, oh, you're innovating that delivery process in a way that can do two things. It can give insight into the most practical data of the process. You do it on demand and you do it in a way that actually is changing how the process itself works. And, so therefore, when I sat back and thought, I was like, oh, wait, these guys are innovators. Okay, cool. Because what I don't want to do is work with businesses who are like the same old has gotten us here. And that is just what we're going to do. But when you unleash the power of mission driven organizations, you unleash everything from those 3-person organizations with one hyper smart tech person who just keeps pushing it forward to giant multi-international organizations. And I will say now, here, 2025, the journey from 2025 to 2030, as Brian's already pointed out, this is going to be a time where every organization needs to think innovatively, transformationally, and redo their original ideation around why they're doing what they're doing and the tools they're doing it with.
Yeah, and what I would add to that, and why we're so excited about Postalytics, is that you're removing a dependency from these organizations where they can start to actually own and operate their direct mail programs more directly. And as we're talking to, and we're talking some venerable organizations, direct mail works. The thing that we need to think about all of that is that we focus so much on the channel, and less, just knee-jerk focus so much on the channel. It's digital trend. It's actually about relationship building at a distance. And, I think that sometimes as brand leaders and as marketers and as, digital strategists, we start to think of the average of a group of people instead of their perceptions and their experiences as an aggregate. Right. So each of those people in that pool of people is an individual and a unit of experience. And when you average it out, you sometimes get to a level of abstraction. The Postalytics platform and what we're trying to build with our other partners as well is all about being able to create that 360-degree view of an individual and being able to act on it. And I think that that's a really powerful message of no, resist the urge to think of them as an average, right? They are individual human beings with lives and experiences. And even if it doesn't necessarily change our tactics marketably, it changes our attitudes and it changes our perceptual experience and it changes our investment in that group of people in a way that makes a difference. In my experience as a business person for many, many years, positive energy is the greatest competitive advantage. How do you deliver that positive energy? How do you deliver that net contribution to human needs? Well, for me as a business development leader for many years, the way I think about it, it's not about getting a sale, it's about making a friend. And if you really can keep that alive in the way you operate as an organization, people will feel it because they're not data points on the other end. They're real people. And I think that, that's why we're excited about Postalytics, because you're taking that experience and putting it in the analog world, and you're removing barriers for these organizations to be effective at that. That's exciting.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I'll tell you a secret. I don't even use 360 view anymore as a promise or as a catchphrase because I wrote a piece a few years ago saying 360 is dead. Uh, what I use instead is I want the right view of the right person that meets our goals as a mission driven organization. And why that was so is because I was getting frustrated with data platforms that instead of having a conversation with their ISVs around like, why are you literally replicating emails inside of a data platform instead of just giving people the right outputs? I can tell you why, because it enables them to sell more storage to any organization using them. That's why they don't say anything. But that's not the right view, right? The right view is the summary of that, personalized to a person that will enable that direct giving officer or the development director or the major donor officer to have that conversation that can unlock the next funding and the next programmatic success. And this is absolutely part of an ecosystem where we are taking things like the outputs from Postalytics, putting them in association with those people, taking things like the outputs of online fundraising tools and advocacy tools and doing the same and saying, stop shoving everything in here. Shove the things in here that are going to help accelerate that next conversation.
Thank you for
That's
updating
really
my talk
where-
track, Tracy. that's useful.
I'm feeling especially passionate and caffeinated today, so sorry.
No, that's good. I picked up something useful there, so thank you.
Well, that's all great, and really, this idea of taking decades of experience that you and the other team members at Benevolent Tech bring to the table, and then helping organizations really rationalize their data strategy and the structures that support those processes to give people not every single piece of information that they could possibly absorb, but the things that actually matter to a person in the fulfillment of their role, I think is such a tremendous way to look at solving for this nonprofit sector in this time of turmoil, right? In this time of uncertainty about budget, uncertainty about resources, all of this is in question. So how do we get focus on the fundamentals that will, enable an organization to do more with less potentially, but do it in a way that is more effective? And I think at the end of the day, that's what you're talking about delivering through a combination of human and data and technology. And so thank you for the shout out to Postalytics. We're thrilled to be a part of it. We have a narrow slice of a legacy marketing channel that lives in the analog world, lives in the physical world. But that doesn't mean that you need to do it in the same way that it's been done since 1990, right? It doesn't all have to be emailing spreadsheets around and having disconnected data that is months behind the actual events that are occurring. And we could probably go on all day on this. So I'll
many
transition.
Spreadsheets in nonprofit technology. So many.
Let's
I think that the way
eliminate as many as we can.
Yeah. I think that the way we're going to do it is together. I think that you add a bunch of organizations, both nonprofit and for-profit, that each own a small piece, and you put it together, and suddenly it's a big piece. And I think that's what we're really hoping to accomplish. Why we didn't build a different kind of company, and why we really want to invest a lot in creating what we call a benevolent community. We'd love many more organizations and professionals to be a part of it.
Well, good. Well, let's transition then to a topic that we're both going to be participating in. So I think we've referred to HubSpot Day at Nonprofit Tech a couple of times. So, we at Postalytics are so proud to be a sponsor and participating in this day that Benevolent Tech is really the driving force behind organizing. And this is the first ever HubSpot Day at Nonprofit Tech. It's going to be on April 15th, which is the day before the conference kicks off formally. And so I'd love for you both to give the audience a sense of what this day is going to be about. And if you're heading to Nonprofit Tech already, why you should come a day earlier, or if you're if you're a nonprofit leader in the greater Baltimore capital region, why would I take a day to go to HubSpot Day at NTC? So give us an understanding of what's going to happen.
I can lead off. I've been affiliated with N10, which is the organization behind the NTC, on and off and in and out and all around for, since either 2007 or 2008. N10 is an extraordinary organization, and it is an organization whose purpose is to foment community and experimentation and inclusion and ownership by the industry for the industry of nonprofit technology in the United States and globally, frankly. The NTC, this is 25 years. We're going to be celebrating all of this. And, there's a rich tradition of days before the NTC. And over the years, the technologies have changed. And that's to my opening statement of 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll be talking about something else. But we used to have Drupal Day, WordPress Day, we had Salesforce Day, we had some Microsoft stuff. I think I started showing up there early enough to remember, do you need help configuring your hardware days? It's with the frankly gracious support of N10 that we're offering this as well. And the idea is twofold. One is we want to get organizations excited about new opportunities that they can employ using HubSpot. We've seen a lot of change in the CRM market, and we think we're going to bring something truly interesting to bear. But the real goal here isn't just to have, and we will, by the way, we'll be talking about our product that I've teased. Our partners will be talking about their products. And I mean, look, to hold these things, folks, takes money and time. And it's through the gracious sponsorship of folks like Postalytics that we're able to do it. So yeah, we're going to enable our sponsors to shine a little light on themselves too. But the real goal here is to kick off community understanding around what it could be possible using this platform and using, solutions in this ecosystem. And, we hope that what actually comes out of this isn't just, a day of okay, cool, I saw some neat stuff, but a day of things that harken back to when I started in technology, and that is, hey, this is a new solution. I'm a little excited about it. I want to learn more. I want to talk to other people who are excited about it too. How are they using it? What are their curiosities? Where did they accelerate? Where did they hit walls? Why? Because that's what led to extraordinary things the last time around we did this. And that was 15 years ago or more at this point, with what became the Nonprofit Success Pack on Salesforce in the industry. We were excited. We were curious. We saw ourselves in it. And yes, times have changed. Yes, these entities no longer exist. Yes, we're doing this as an independent small business and not as a major platform, but we're doing it in concert with a lot of cool support, both from HubSpot and from our partners. And we think to some small degree, we can initiate some new community and new thinking around this. And that would be just extraordinary for us. I don't know, Brian, what would you add?
Yeah, I mean, so just to describe the day a little bit, it's going to be, a day of learning, of conversation, of networking, of sort of collaboration. It's not going to be sort of like I'll be blunt. It's not a sales pitch in disguise. It is really a convening of folks. The folks who are co-sponsoring are all folks who actually share this idea that we need to come together as a broader community, nonprofits and for-profits alike, and say, look, we need new approaches. We need new ideas. We need new platforms in this space. And HubSpot has been used by nonprofits for a while now, but what we're trying to build is a deepening of that relationship with this industry. And HubSpot is frankly on board with that and is supporting us in very real material ways. And so I think that it's all about sort of shining a light on the fact that there's so much more that can be a part of this, right? And so the goal of the day is really that convening. It is free for anyone from a nonprofit, including meals. You do not have to be registered for NTC to attend. And, the goal is to listen and learn ourselves as well. We have some wonderful speakers lined up. And some wonderful, particularly in the afternoon, some unconference activities that will be very collaborative, where we're actually working on these challenges together. And frankly, we are hoping it's just the beginning. Most of the people.
Although I would be remiss if I didn't point out where we're going to be located in the convention center is directly across from the registration desk for the NTC. So if
right?
you're not registered for the NTC and you get a little bit of taste of the kinds of folks who are going to showing up there just because you attended HubSpot Day, maybe because you're local or maybe because you're just curious, you can walk right over to that desk, and I guarantee you they will be happy to register you for one or more days of the conference.
Yeah.
And as a longtime veteran of this conference, there is a sweetness and a community and a vibe to it that you don't get anywhere else in the tech industry, I promise.
Yeah, I would be remiss not to Tracy, thank you for doing that, why we're doing this at NTC and why we're so excited about it being associated with NTC is because the N10 shares those and actually inspires a lot of our ideas and characteristics. And it is a very unique community. And I would encourage anyone in the region who is not currently registered to do so, because it is a special community.
Absolutely. There's no question. I think we have an incredible industry filled with incredible people in the nonprofit world. We're playing a small part together in trying to help them through this period of time, this period of transition that we have to get through. As you have pointed out, we can only do it together. We're not going to do it on our own. And so by joining together, we can learn, we can evolve, we can challenge assumptions that we've held for a long time about how things are done and why they are done the way they are. And so I'm so excited for the day. And so as you can imagine, we at Postalytics are strongly encouraging everybody in the audience. If you're a nonprofit in the greater Baltimore area, anywhere within driving distance, just go. It's going to be free. It's going to be a tremendous day. If you're already coming in for NTC, then come in a little bit earlier and go to this. You can register online at benevolent.tech/HubSpot-day-NTC25. We'll include this in on the show notes, and so everybody will have this. But it's going to be a great day. We're one of many partners that the Benevolent Tech folks have pulled together here that are supporting this. And so, we'd love to see as many of the leaders and doers in the nonprofit space to show up on April 15th. And I can assure everybody it's going to be a tremendous day.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Dennis.
thank you, Dennis.
I'm just going to say thanks to Postalytics as well for being a sponsor. Thanks for having some faith in us as a business. And I always say the same thing, and that is with rare exception. I've also been in business partnerships for nonprofits for quite a while. And it is with rare exception do I ever run into a business partner or owner who says, you know what I want to do is just squeeze the life out of the industry and make as much money as possible. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And if you sit down over coffee or hard liquor, it doesn't even matter. All the CEOs I've ever talked to from these businesses will tell you the same story. And that is, I didn't do this for the money. I did it because I believed that it is possible to both run a business and make the world better. So thank you.
Well, that's wonderful, and I can tell you that in my role here at Postalytics, my favorite part of the day is talking to customers. It's talking to partners, and it's invigorating. And so I know that we will have an opportunity to invigorate ourselves collectively when we all get together on the 15th. So very, very excited.
We're very grateful to have you be a part of it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. If anybody in the audience prior to HubSpot Day at NTC, if they want to reach out and connect with you about the work that you're doing, about the collective efforts that you are trying to organize to help nonprofits through this tough period that we are entering, where would folks reach out? How do they get in touch with you? What's the best way to engage with you?
Brian, you better answer that, because my only answer is
love for you. If you go to our LinkedIn company page, you'll see the partners there, and you can always reach out to us via LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, and I have made some great friends, including Tracy, via lurking on LinkedIn. But also you can go to benevolent.tech, and we have a form there that you can fill out, and it doesn't go to an AI, it goes to a human being who will reach back out to you with a message that is tailored to what we know about you and what you express to us that you're looking for. And we love to engage. I think that one of the ways that trying to be a benevolent business manifests is that we really don't want to be transactional. We want to create deep partnerships. We want to create friendships. We want to take what I would call the miracle on 34th Street approach to business, in that if Gimbals has a better price, we'll send you to Gimbals. Gimbals has the right solution for you, as opposed to Macy's. So what I mean by that, if you haven't seen the movie, the reference will make sense. But we would rather have a conversation.
Brian just dated us all. Thanks, buddy.
We would rather.
Those of us shaking our heads are if been given away here.
We'd rather have a conversation and guide you to the right solution that is not ours, if that's going to help you be, to achieve your goals, than not have the conversation. So we'd love to hear from anyone in this space who's looking for a friend, because that's what we're striving to be, friends in this industry.
I'm much easier to find, www.benevolent.tech, and I'm solely, exclusively, and entirely on LinkedIn. I have no other social media presence. Yeah.
What a healthy way to look at the world, my friend.
I don't know.
It's so much.
I got rid of a lot of it over the
Exactly.
I got rid of a lot of it over the past 5-10 years. So I'm just like, you know what? I think LinkedIn's good enough.
It is.
I've never had somebody on LinkedIn say, I can't find you. So I am the only Kronzak in the entire United States. It is not hard to find me on LinkedIn.
That is truly astounding. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a whole nother story. But yeah, I am literally the only person in the United States now that my uncle, who passed in 1988, died. That's it. I'm the only Kronzak.
Wow.
So,
well, you heard that, audience. We have one of a kind here. We have a unicorn.
There's two Brian Greenwald. One of them is a brain surgeon, and the other is a mafia attorney. So I'm the third.
That's awesome. So thanks so much, Tracy and Brian, for joining me today. I've had a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot in the time we've spent together. And I'm thrilled to build on that on April 15th. So everybody, check out Benevolent Tech online on LinkedIn. Sign up for HubSpot Day at NTC 25. It's going to be phenomenal. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing, and we'll look forward to seeing you very soon in Baltimore.
Yep. See
Thank
you
you.
soon.